Announcer, TSN Week with Alamazur.
Ana Zuzulia, a massive shelling instead of negotiations. Conventional and jet-powered Shaheds, hypersonic Kinzhal missiles, ballistic Iskanders, strategic KH-101s, 629 aerial attack weapons launched simultaneously. On the night before Thursday, Russia carried out the second most powerful strike on Ukraine since the start of the full-scale war. This time, more missiles were launched at Kyiv, and they flew with direct targeting into residential neighborhoods. 25 civilian residents of Kyiv were killed, including 4 children. August 29th was a day of mourning in the capital, and we grieved together with the families of all those who lost their lives. But this attack had a particular emphasis, because at the very time when security guarantees for Ukraine are being discussed in Europe, its diplomatic institutions were also affected. Buildings of the EU mission and the British Centre were damaged, and one of the missiles exploded near the Azerbaijani embassy. The European Union summoned the Russian envoy in Brussels, but the essence of the matter was clearly articulated, in particular by The Guardian. Putin is testing Trump's resolve and Europe's determination. That's the headline of the editorial article. If Europe and Trump, will the EU be able to adopt new sanctions despite Orban? At what stage are the talks about security guarantees for Ukraine? Has Trump finally realized who the aggressor is and who the victim is in this war? The 2 weeks he gave Putin end tomorrow. I don't know about you, but to me, Trump's tomorrow is synonymous with the infinity symbol. Maybe our delegation will bring back something more than just words from America. In New York, for the first time, Ukraine's Prime Minister Yulia Sviridenko, head of the President's Office Andriy Yermak, and the country's second-ranking diplomat Serhiy Kislitsia tried to talk with the Special Representative for Russia, Styop Ditkofoma. But have their positions gotten any closer? Which way will the pendulum swing next? That's what we're talking about today. This is TSN Week. The more you know, the better armed you are. Greetings to you, indomitable Ukrainians. The death strip of the Donetsk steppe.
We don't care as long as no one the fuck comes here.
How did the defense forces manage to break the pincers around Dobropilya? How do the fighters of the invisible electronic front save hundreds of our guys every day?
The interception is carried out in real time.
And why, instead of a victorious hurrah, are Russian generals now blushing over their failed summer offensive? A demonstrative killing in the rear?
This is Russian revenge for his stance.
What theories do investigators have regarding the murder of former Verkhovna Rada head Andriy Parubi? And can the special services thwart the enemy's plan to eliminate the patriots? Burnout effect? Why have strikes on oil refineries finally turned into a full-fledged fuel crisis in Russia? And what else can Ukrainian strike drones do to completely shut down the gas station country? And first, the news from where the fate of the world is truly being decided right now. The much-hyped Russian summer offensive has failed. This is now the conclusion not only of the American Institute for the Study of War, but also of our own general staff. Despite the massive number of forces Putin threw into this offensive, the Muscovites failed to capture a single city in Donetsk or Kharkiv regions. Moscow's plans to create a so-called security belt in the Chernihiv, Sumy, and Kharkiv regions have also been thwarted. Less than 70 kilometers of territory along the border have come under Russian control. However, according to American experts, Russian generals are blatantly lying about their successes on the front lines in order to convince the West of their inevitable victory over Ukraine. However, as our Andriy Tsaplienko says, there is now cautious optimism even regarding the return of several settlements captured by the Russians in the summer. How was it possible to stop the enemy in the Dobropilya area and near Siversk? How were they able to cut off the pincers near Pokrovsk? Andriy will now tell us everything.
All right, we're ready for takeoff. Then let's get to work.
Andriy Tsaplienko, their job is to stop the horde. The Russian summer offensive stalled, in part thanks to these guys. A reconnaissance drone is a small element of a complex system for monitoring the battlefield and creating an impassable zone for Russian infantry.
And not once has it ever happened that during our entire flight, we didn't find at least one interesting specimen.
Andriy Tsaplienko, what you're seeing now looks on the map like a long snake-like tongue stretching 18 kilometers toward Dobropilya. Or rather, the remnants of that tongue, because Ukrainian forces have almost completely cut it off at the root. The plan to bypass Dobropilya and encircle Pokrovsk has failed. But that doesn't mean the Kremlin has abandoned it.
We've had some success there. At the moment, the situation there looks like a tug of war. The initiative keeps shifting from one side to the other. The enemy has a significant advantage there, both in manpower and equipment. But they are also suffering heavy losses there.
Andriy Tsaplienko, this was a well-fortified area of Ukrainian defensive positions. But there was a critical shortage of personnel to hold our defensive line in this sector, so it quickly stopped being ours. The occupiers took it over.
Since they don't know the area, they just act on herd instinct. They only react to the sound of FPV drones, they run for cover in the trees and try to hide.
Andriy Tsaplienko. Now it's difficult to retake the fortifications, but the guys are trying to turn the lost stronghold into a trap for the enemy. In the Dobropilya area, where Ukrainian soldiers literally made superhuman efforts to eliminate the Russian breakthrough, this drone has just spotted another massive concentration of enemy infantry. Now it's heading back there again, because whether the Ukrainian defenders can hold their positions depends on its work. The aerial reconnaissance unit Phoenix has found the target. Now the operator of the strike drone will take care of reducing the enemy's manpower.
Got it, I understood.
Andriy Tsaplienko, the system is designed to minimize the time between detecting and striking the enemy.
We fly beyond the line of contact into the enemy's rear, locating them. At that moment, our FPV operator is already approaching the target. That's why it's so effective.
This kind of warfare has rendered armored vehicles ineffective. The enemy is massively switching to motorcycles, trying to dash through the kill zone, or hopelessly crawling across it on foot, playing a deadly lottery with Ukrainian drones. Only this way do the expendable Russian soldiers have a chance to advance.
1, 2, 3 motorcycles ride down the road and immediately turn into the tree line.
In our case, I don't know about others, they never made it, because our FPV operators take them out in advance. Is it effective? It doesn't matter to us. We just don't want them crawling in here, that's all.
In the north of Donetsk region, the Russian summer offensive ran into the city of Siversk. The occupiers dared to launch a massive assault, but the soldiers of the 54th Brigade were waiting for them. 30 units of military equipment and 41 motorcyclists. Almost the entire armada was left burning in the field.
The enemy's objective was basically to get into Siversk. It was a duel between our armored group and the enemy's vanguard, with that tank which took about 17 FPV hits and kept moving because it was so heavily armored that it was only destroyed when our tank tore off its armor plating with a shot, and then the FPVs were able to reach it.
The occupiers, realizing they can't take the city head-on, are repeating with Siversk what they're doing near Pokrovsk, trying to outflank it.
The situation looks a bit critical, but in reality, it's not that critical because the brigade has been holding its position for a very long time. The city of Siversk is well prepared from an engineering standpoint. They can't take us head-on. We're trying to create a kill zone of 10 to 20 kilometers.
The Russians are also creating a zone where everything spotted by Russian drones is destroyed. Despite the mortal danger, the soldier watches as the killer drone searches for its target. Unfortunately, it finds one. The Ukrainian forces lose a vehicle. But against drones, the defenders of Siversk have an invisible yet highly effective weapon. The soldiers in the trenches can't see it and rarely think about the fact that it is what gives them a chance to survive. This is a Russian kamikaze drone of the Molnya type. It has already been intercepted.
What exactly was this particular drone loaded with?
With fragmentation high explosive, 2 fragmentation high explosive charges.
And this kamikaze drone is already carrying several kilograms of death in real time, heading towards Siversk. But an interceptor drone comes in from above and interrupts its flight. And it was the electronic warfare unit that managed to calculate its trajectory by hacking into the Molnya's video feed. The Ukrainian operator is now essentially looking at the battlefield through the enemy's eyes.
Video from Russian drone.
Yes, we are indeed receiving this crucial intelligence directly from their reconnaissance drone. The interception of this vital information is currently happening in real time as we speak.
Just 2 years ago, such a war could only be imagined in science fiction blockbusters. Today, it's just part of the daily routine. The separate electronic warfare company Spectre almost never shows their work. But they showed us. The EW operator connected to the enemy's FPV.
This means it will no longer be able to catch its own signal.
Now the drone will be helped to crash into the ground. Just like that, there's one less aerial killer. But in this area, their numbers are measured in dozens.
It's truly best to head to the observation and jamming position the way we are doing it right now is the most optimal approach. Under a net and with the EW system turned on. And our driver also says that sometimes it doesn't hurt to cross yourself because the drone activity here is extremely high. Just imagine, in a single day, the position we're heading to can jam or neutralize up to 100 enemy FPV drones. That means 100 lives of our infantrymen quietly saved.
There's a scanner in the pickup. On the screen is an intercepted image from an enemy drone. It's searching for a target nearby. There's nothing to worry about until you see your own vehicle on the screen. This position is a priority target for the Russian occupiers. That's why we're not showing the actual EW systems that are covering Siversk.
Because all of this is expendable material. Just as we damage their systems and antennas, they damage ours as well.
That system of yours, the one that costs millions, are you saying that's expendable material?
Yes, it doesn't last long. It gets detected, and it gets detected quickly, just like we detect theirs.
These specialists can even neutralize a Lancet and, if necessary, help shoot down a Shahed. In just a few minutes, the operator brought down 2 drones that were heading in our direction.
One is a kamikaze wing, and the other is an FPV, and both are flying together.
Towards us?
Towards us, yes.
We were just about to head out.
One down.
Did you jam the wing?
Yes, indeed.
A typical day here means 100 neutralized drones.
100 drones a day, so that's 3,000 a month maybe? Yes. A lot.
The Russians are improving their killing technologies and are gradually shifting from Chinese to their own high-tech components, warns Finn, the commander of the electronic warfare unit.
Here, the essential spare parts are already entirely Russian-made. The control antenna and the video signal antenna.
These drones were successfully jammed, but there are still some that managed to break through the electronic defense wall of the 54th Brigade. The solution is to have more electronic warfare systems in reserve and more interceptor drones in the air. This will definitely help hold Sieviero-Donetsk, save the lives of the infantry, and thwart Putin's audacious plans as he does not stop his offensive. Andriy Tsaplienko, Ilya Shinkarenko, Serhiy Perfilov, TSN Week, 1+1 Marathon, United News.
And once again, we have a military breakthrough. Another special operation by the main intelligence directorate has turned military science on its head, because this modern Russian corvette, the Bayan M, was hit by a small Ukrainian FPV drone. For the first time in history, it has been proven that it is possible to operate such an aerial vehicle in open sea and at a distance of over 350 kilometers. Of course, our side isn't saying what type of FPV drone it was, so in the studio we decided to speculate a little. But what is certain is that the target was a Kaliber missile carrier, which was ready to launch. This is a brilliantly planned operation by the HUR Payamara unit. We specifically modeled this moment so you could see how a small drone can turn a modern missile carrier into nothing more than a hunk of metal because it struck the most valuable part of the corvette, the radar system. The most interesting part, the Russians insisted that the Bayan ships were invulnerable from the air. With its defense system, neither a plane nor a missile can get through. But it turned out that the Buyan's air defense system is blind to such small targets. All the crew could do was maneuver, but that's like an elephant trying to escape from a fly. The radar is also one of the most expensive parts of the ship. The enemy's losses amount to millions of dollars. So for now, the Russians have one less missile carrier. This is another of our victories at sea. In total, Ukraine has destroyed 28 ships and boats and 1 submarine. And what survived, the Russians have driven far away from Ukraine's shores. The Russians are learning. This week, they attacked our reconnaissance ship Simferopol at the mouth of the Danube with a naval drone. Unfortunately, there are casualties, and we mourn this loss as a nation. However, our strength comes from our successes deep in the Russian rear, where our defense forces are skillfully burning down the main resource of the gas station country, its oil refineries. This week, we successfully attacked 5 of them, which caused hysteria in the Kremlin, and there will be more. After President Zelensky's hint about new deep strikes, everyone understood that something new is about to fly towards Russia. TSN Week correspondent Oksana Radionova reports on the results of the 1,000 cuts tactic.
August is the worst month for Russian oil refining since the start of the Great War. Never before have our forces so skillfully and relentlessly taken out oil refineries in Russia. Just this week, our trusty drones visited 5 plants. On Friday night, they struck Russia's oldest oil refinery, the Krasnodar plant.
It's burning intensely. The oil refinery is completely on fire.
And for the 3rd time this month, the Syzran refinery near Samara was burning. At the same time, the Afipsky and Kuibyshev refineries, attacked 2 days earlier, were still smoldering.
There it goes, there it goes.
On Monday, the Ilyinsky oil refinery was engulfed in a significant fire, causing considerable damage. Here is a map of the flares in Russia over the past month. In addition to the 5 already mentioned, on Independence Day there were fires at the Syzran and Novoshakhtinsk refineries. On August 19th, the Volgograd refinery was hit again. There were also successful attacks by our UAVs on the 15th, 13th, 10th, 7th, and 2nd of August. The strike was very timely, harvest season and vacations, leaving a very bitter aftertaste for Russia's wartime economy.
At this point, approximately 30% of oil refining capacity has been knocked out. This affects overall trade and logistics capabilities, increases prices, and provokes inflation.
It's a paradox. The gas station country has been left without gasoline. Fuel prices have reached their peak. Russians are groaning about a gasoline shortage from Sakhalin.
It's simply completely impossible to fill up your vehicle.
All the way to Crimea.
At the gas station, they say the gasoline is gone. Now they're only giving it out with coupons. What's being handed out? Have we gone back to the Soviet Union?
They never had coupons before. Never. Not in any year was gasoline ever distributed by coupons.
The Kremlin is trying to manually control prices. It has extended the ban on gasoline exports for another month until October. And we are only increasing our strikes.
Our intensity is growing. More drones are being produced. The technology behind various features is improving. And in particular, the local Russian electronic warfare is already ineffective there.
The main goal is to stop the oil flow that allows Putin to finance the war. So we are striking not only at the refineries but also at the pumping stations, skillfully targeting the most sensitive spots.
Oh my gosh,
That's how on Friday, a strategic oil pumping facility in the Bryansk region was hit, a linear production station near Naitopovichi, which pumps diesel for the enemy's army. Its capacity is 10 million tons per year. This week, the Ryazan-Moscow oil pipeline also exploded, the one that supplies gasoline to Muscovites. Our forces have already attacked strategic facilities of the Druzhba oil pipeline several times. There, our defenders found the Achilles heel, a station in Nechu.
It might seem like just a relatively small station, but it's actually the critical bottleneck of the entire extensive Russian oil pipeline system, a crucial point.
So, if this node is destroyed, it completely blocks the supply directly to Ust-Luga, cuts off deliveries to Belarus, and consequently from there, supplies to Europe as well.
Because of this strike, Belarus lost the technical ability to quickly share gasoline with their Russian brothers. Plus, they hit the Druzhba pipeline in such a way that Putin's friends, Orban and Fico, were left without cheap Russian oil.
We have always consistently and firmly supported the enduring friendship between the nations of Ukraine and Hungary.
In Budapest, the strike was called an attack on sovereignty, and they announced a ban on entry into the country for the commander of the drone forces, Hungarian Robert Vrupli. He is an ethnic Hungarian. He responded,
"You can absolutely shove your sanctions and all your travel restrictions to Hungary right up your ass, Mr. Dancer on Bones."
But Hungarian supplies were not the target of the strike because the main goal was to stop the flows in the Baltic direction. That's where Putin's entire shadow tanker fleet refuels, and that's exactly where the billions are flowing from. And Hungary and Slovakia can easily give up Putin's oil.
Hungary and Slovakia, they have an alternative oil pipeline from the Adriatic Sea and can completely abandon Russian supplies. But it's simply not profitable for them. There, the discount is about $100 per ton of oil for Hungary and Slovakia. Over the course of a year, that's up to 1 billion euros. That's a huge amount of money for these small countries, especially if you consider certain politicians there.
Oil used to go from Odessa to the port of Ust-Luga on the Baltic Sea. Now it doesn't. And on top of that, we attacked the port itself.
A drone costing $50,000 destroys property worth millions. And it also causes millions in losses due to unproduced goods.
The 18th package of sanctions from Europe, which imposed price caps on Russian oil, has also proven painful for Russia. The hole in their budget is growing at a geometric rate. The coal industry is on the verge of bankruptcy. The main coal region, Kuzbas, is shutting down mine after mine. Even in the turbulent 90s, things weren't this bad. Aviation is also on the verge of collapse. Constant announcements of KVR plans and airport closures have made flights unpredictable and unprofitable. Due to Western sanctions, finding spare parts for aircraft repairs has become extremely difficult. Engines are failing more and more often. Just in August, it happened 3 times. The automotive industry is also in trouble. Sales of the largest truck manufacturer, KAMAZ, have dropped by 60%, and last year, profits fell 28 times. So since August, KAMAZ has switched to a 4-day work week. Even at military enterprises, problems with salaries have started, and Russians who don't want to work for free are being replaced by slaves from North Korea.
The payment for their work goes to the North Korean government, while they receive food and a minimal set of pocket money, so to speak.
Gazprom has also fallen on hard times. Russia hasn't sold as little gas as it does now since 1985. That's why the question of where to get money for the war machine has become crucial for Putin. He will definitely be asking for help from China, North Korea, and negotiating with India at the SCO summit. We'll see what the dictator's friends are willing to do. But it seems he won't be the one setting the tone of the conversation.
Well, India and China understand that Russia is in a very precarious position, and they're already starting to twist their arm even more, demanding additional discounts.
But the main thing is our influence. With beavers, ferocity, darkness, and Palyanitzias, until the gas station country loses its last clients. Oksana Radionova, Yevhen Litvinenko, Teesanvik, Uxplaus-U, Marathon. United News.
And in China today, it's essentially a showcase of the new world, as my colleague Vitaly Portnikov aptly put it. At the largest summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization since its founding, leaders from more than 20 countries have gathered. Putin, with his own victory parade, who also arrived there, could only dream of such representation. By the way, the current occasion has overshadowed that Russian victory, because it is China that is marking the end of World War II. Moreover, eternal rivals China and India have gathered here, as well as the quarreling Aliyev and Putin and industrial competitors China and Vietnam. The only thing that truly unites them is their hatred of the West, which is so strong that they are ready to develop joint strategies. They will talk not only about the economy but also about the war in Ukraine. And it is this center of power that Donald Trump now considers his main problem. Has he already responded? Most importantly, I want to ask our own TSN correspondent in the United States, Olha Koshelenko, for more details about the Ukrainian delegation's visit to the States. Olechka, hello. Donald Trump still has not commented on the deadly airstrike on Kyiv this week. Meanwhile, his spokesperson essentially equated Russia's killing of civilians with our strikes on enemy oil refineries. Where do we stand right now, considering how often the moods of the President of the United States change?
Greetings, Allo. Donald Trump disappeared from the newsfield starting Wednesday. On Tuesday, he held a cabinet meeting, and since Wednesday, he hasn't appeared before journalists, which for him, a president who makes statements, gives interviews and comments at least once a day, was very unusual and suspicious. There were even rumors that he might have gone on vacation. But no. As it turned out, on Friday, for example, Trump gave a one-hour interview to the conservative online publication The Daily Caller, which I will mention again later. And yesterday, cameras caught him from a distance as he left the White House with his grandchildren to go play golf. So Trump is around, but for some reason he doesn't want to be in the public eye. According to sources cited by Politico and CNN, the president is very disappointed with the results his efforts to achieve a peaceful resolution in Ukraine have brought. And he blames in particular the European leaders who, instead of encouraging Zelensky to be more accommodating, are actually behind the scenes advising him not to agree to the current proposals and to wait for a better deal. The Daily Caller, which I already mentioned, published the interview today, or rather late last night. And there it is stated that Trump is not sure, as he put it, whether a one-on-one meeting between Zelensky and Putin will take place. But according to him, Trump, a trilateral meeting with the US president's participation will take place. And Trump once again resorted to his favorite analogy, saying that Ukraine and Russia are like children fighting on a playground. He says you need to give them some time to fight it out, and eventually they'll come running to make peace themselves.
You have a young child and there's another child on the playground, and they absolutely hate each other and immediately start fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting without end. You want them to stop, but they keep going. After a while, they'll be very glad to stop. Do you understand that? It's almost the same here. Sometimes they might need to engage in a little bit of a struggle or a fight before you can effectively make them completely stop their actions. But this has been going on for a long time. A lot of people have died.
As for the meeting with Putin in Alaska, Trump said that there were no disagreements with him because, as he put it, they've known each other for a long time and have always gotten along well. Hello?
But at least former President Trump is certainly not planning to stop supplying crucial weapons or sharing vital intelligence because of his personal disappointment. Is he really?
No, hello. It's actually the opposite right now. This is his favorite talking point regarding Ukraine, that we no longer give them weapons for free. They're buying it from us. The profits from these deals are very pleasing to Donald Trump. And this week, he approved the largest arms sale to Ukraine since the start of this administration, the second Donald Trump administration. First and foremost, this includes more than 3,000 ERAM cruise missiles, which have a range of between 240 and 450 kilometers. According to the Wall Street Journal, they could arrive in Ukraine in as little as 6 weeks. But to carry out strikes on Ukraine, the targets must still be coordinated with the head of the Pentagon, who is currently Pete Hegseth. And 825 million for the missiles will be paid by Denmark, the Netherlands and Norway, and partially by the United States. And also this week, an additional 300 million. The US is providing 300 million. The US has sold us equipment to support the operation of Patriot air defense systems and services to maintain the operation of Starlink. So as you can see, work is in full swing here.
And at the same time, as we can see, work on security guarantees for Ukraine seems to be ongoing. This week, the head of the President's office, Andriy Yermak, and the First Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Serhiy Kislitsia, met in New York with Trump's Special Representative, Steve Witkoff. Is it already possible to talk about the real outlines of security guarantees?
Hello. We need to constantly keep in mind that security guarantees will only come into effect after peace is established with Russia, which for now we are nowhere near achieving. And by the way, after the meeting with Witkoff that you mentioned, Yermak said that Ukraine is focusing the Americans' attention precisely on the fact that Putin is not capable of making agreements, that Russia is not seriously committed to diplomacy, and Kyiv, by agreeing to all these formal meetings, hopes that sooner or later America will return to the idea of imposing sanctions against Russia. And this week, the issue of sanctions was also raised by the representative of the United States at the UN Security Council during the emergency meeting convened by Ukraine. And Yermak also emphasized that no one is pressuring Ukraine to give up its territories. If this is really the case, then it is a positive outcome of the meeting at the White House in the United States Ukraine-European Union format that took place this month. Because previously this very idea that we have to give up some of our territories was, so to speak, the cornerstone of the American version of the peace agreement. And Yermak confirmed that the United States once again agrees to peace, to these security guarantees in the form of Article 5 of the NATO Charter from European countries, while the United States assigns itself the exclusive role of coordinator and logistics provider in this story. But still, as long as the fighting continues, we must remember that none of the so-called coalition of the willing is actually willing to send their forces into Ukraine under fire. In other words, everyone wants to wait for a stable peace, and only after that can this idea be implemented. There was also the idea of creating a so-called demilitarized buffer zone, but the president of Ukraine rejected it. And, well, we can see that all these ideas are just options for now, and everyone continues to play this diplomatic game so that the negotiations themselves keep going, and each side, Ukraine and Russia, I mean, wants to secure better terms for themselves in this agreement.
Thank you, Olya. In short, we keep an eye on the news, especially from Washington, but we focus on our own work. TSN's own correspondent in the United States, Olha Koshelenko, was in touch with us.